Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Sebring City Council. It's Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. If you'll stand with me, the mayor's going to lead us in a prayer and a pledge.
God with me. Lord, thank you once again for the wonderful city that we live in. Thank you for the staff that we have that keeps it running so good. We ask that you watch over city council tonight to make sound and right decisions. We ask that you watch over our citizens as our community continues to grow and prosper. We ask that you watch over Scott Navik as he went through surgery today and will recover with no issues, or I shouldn't say that, but there's a few issues. But I just ask you put your healing hand on him and guide him through this peace that he's going through. We ask that all we do in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Schuth.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Avery.
Here.
Mendel.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Bishop.
Here. All right. If anyone has anything that they would like to discuss that is not on the agenda, you can fill out one of the forms here on the front table, hand it in to Clerk Haley, and we will get to it later in the meeting. Mayor's report.
Not a lot. Didn't do a lot since the last meeting, but we had an opportunity to go out to Spring Lake and look at their new wastewater treatment trailer. It's a small trailer, not a big plant anymore. That's kind of new technology, and it's really, if it works, it'll be a big savings to anybody that utilizes it. It takes a $30 million plant, puts it in a $3 million trailer, and produces more output. So it's pretty interesting. And Spring Lake's kind of a test for it. But that's about all I got for you. So
All right. I'll take it.
you got it.
Mr. Carlisle.
No report.
Ms. Mendel.
Good evening, everyone. So glad you're here. September 18th, coming right up, the Airport Authority and myself and a couple of citizens are putting together a dedication celebration for Major Tommy McGuire out at the airport. It's going to be very cool. And that'll be at 1 p.m. on September 18th, and we would love for you all to come. We're going to have speakers talking about Tommy McGuire and Laird Hendricks, and then the airport's going to give a little talk about what they're doing out there and the advances they've made. And I've heard that presentation, and it's quite amazing. You know, I really have never gone out to the airport much other than to go for the races. And even then, I wasn't paying that much attention to what was going on in the way of the airport. But it's quite amazing. We're very blessed to have a very good airport. And so that's September 18th, 1 p.m. out at where the Runway Cafe is, the Airport Authority. Friday before last, I went to a workshop that Sheriff Paul Blackman was putting on over there at the sheriff's station, and it was touched on homeless, domestic abuse, and really kind of majored on the folks that are getting out of jail, trying to see that they don't re-enter, try to see that they have some resources and lodging and transportation and help with mental health issues. And it was a very good meeting put together by Shirley Johnson. A lot of people know her and some others out there. And it was really quite amazing. And we do have a lot of people that are working together to try to take care of some of the issues, and including the homeless issue. That's a very serious thing. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Josh.
Two things. I went to our code enforcement meeting last Tuesday, and again, want to give a shout out to Tyler and Joe. Had another guy there who had been cited by code enforcement, and he went out of his way to say how great they were to work with and thanked them, which again, it's not what you expect at a code enforcement meeting. The other thing, just an interesting thing that happened last week, I was getting my hair cut at a new barber shop and was talking with the barber, and he moved down here from Orlando about 6 months ago. And, I said, well, why'd you do that? That's usually the opposite of how it goes around here. And he said that he had to work so much up there, and he had an hour commute each way, that he was never able to see his kid, his 4-year-old son, that he was asleep by the time he got home. And he moved down here so that because things were cheaper and he would have more time to be able to be with his son. And I thought that was great, a great encapsulation of what we like about Sebring and what we're trying to keep. That's it.
No report.
Okay. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
Motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second it.
All right. Pull the board, please.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes. All right, we have no old business. On to new business. We have a public hearing and ordinance reading of 1529. I will open the public hearing and hand it off to Mr. Swain.
Proposed ordinance 1529 is entitled an ordinance of the city of Sebring, Florida, changing the zoning classification of two parcels that total approximately 18,000 square feet located at 503 Rose Avenue and 513 Rose Avenue from multiple family district R3 to public and quasi-public lands district P, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, next up, Ms. Torres.
You have the presentation.
Is that part of it?
No, today. I believe you already went through the presentation. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Well, I can answer any questions that you have, or I can go through the presentation and however you want to do it.
I'll just see if anybody from the public has any questions. Nope. All right, I'll close the public hearing. Anybody from council have any questions or comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 1529 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, pull the board.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes. All right. Next up, item 10B. We have the 2025 African American Heritage Month. Would like to hold an event at the Civic Center with the waiving of fees. Is Mr. Selvin Walker here? No? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve request as presented.
I second it.
Pull the board.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes. Next up is item 10C. The Rotary Club of Sebring is wanting to help out in putting a bathroom facility on the circle. All right.
I think Carl brought them in. I don't know if you want to use them or not. Yeah, this one, it's pretty direct. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Stupid and members of the council. We want to thank you for taking the time to hear us out today. My name is Todd Scholl, and I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Sebring. To my left is Bill Binkley. He is the committee chair for our 100th anniversary project committee. What we are proposing to do is to build a bathroom in downtown Sebring. There's a little bit of history behind this. The very first project that the Rotary Club ever did was a bathroom that they built in downtown Chicago. And the reason why they built this was because they found that women who were shopping in downtown Chicago often left early because they didn't feel they had a place to use the restroom in private. So they built a bathroom in order to further improve the business prospects for the local businessmen downtown. In downtown Sebring, we have sort of a similar situation. We have a number of events where we have to bring in porta potties that are an eyesore, a nose sore, so we thought that as part of our 100th anniversary, that we would address this problem much like the very first Rotary Club addressed that problem so long ago. So this is our September 8th, 2024 marks the 100th year anniversary of the Rotary Club of Sebring. And in the past, we have done large projects to celebrate essentially any big milestone. So for the 75th anniversary, we did a lot of work out at Rotary Park, and so this kind of follows through with what we've done in the past. So the proposed site is going to be at 122 North Commerce Avenue. It's a city-owned parcel. It's located behind the Circle Theater. It's currently a small parking lot, and it's located close to the Circle Center. So it'll be easy for people who are visiting downtown to access the restroom facilities. And we have here a proposed project plan. There's in the packet that you have, there is one might be a little easier to see, but you can see that we have a men's and a women's room. We also have a changing station. It'll be concrete block walls with stucco finish inside and out, standing seam metal roof, epoxy floor with floor drains, automatic faucets, toilets, hand dryers, and lighting, air conditioned and wired for exterior lights and cameras. It'll be ADA compliant, vandal resistant. Again, we'll have built-in large baby changing tables that will be large enough to support an adult, should somebody should change an adult. And we will also include a Rotary and Sebring themed mural that's going to face the circle. The project financials are as follows. We have a preliminary cost estimate of about $200,000. The Rotary Club of Sebring is committed to contribute a minimum of $50,000, and we believe the city of Sebring is going to contribute $50,000. We have a request from the CRA to contribute another $50,000, and then the gap between that money and the ultimate cost will be fundraised by the Rotary Clubs. We have also a number of members of the Rotary Club of Sebring here, including George Hensley, who's, in addition to being, I believe, the longest member of the Rotary Club of Sebring, also a former mayor. George, do you want to get up and say anything about the project?
Yes, he does.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am the longest member of the club, not in length, but time, since 1963. And I'm the oldest member, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, really, at this point, but I do want to just share with you that the Rotary Club of Sebring, formed in 1924, has done a lot for our community. We have Rotary Park that rebuilt the pier a number of years ago. Our fundraising and giving throughout the community, a lot of different organizations, doesn't get published very much, but I want to just tell you that Rotary Charities is very, very active in supporting the community and the organizations that help people within the community. So this project, we feel, is an opportunity for us to really get together, partner with the city, the CRA, and our own members and fundraisers to present this project to the city as a part of our 100th anniversary. So we encourage you to support that, encourage you to say, yes, that's a really good thing. Josh, thank you very much, our former president of our club. And so we've got a good group of people, and ever since Paul Harris founded Rotary in 1904, and with one man and three other men in Chicago, amazing what Rotary has done in communities in our United States and around the world. Millions and millions of dollars have gone into projects of Rotary. One of the biggest projects that is known as the elimination of polio around the world. And in connection along with the Bill Gates Foundation, at one time they committed $50 million toward that project. And it has done the job. I think there are only two countries where in the world that polio still has some position. We've built water wells, we've built housing, we've done things all over the world. When you go to another country, you can go to a Rotary Club and you're welcomed. Even though you may not speak the language, doesn't matter. you're a Rotarian, and that makes a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick comments. First, I want to thank the council for an opportunity to partner with the city of Sebring on this project. We could not do a project without a partner that's willing to take on the maintenance and the upkeep of such a facility. So it's instrumental that we find a partner that's willing to do that. We want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. Also, there were a couple, our club is a legacy of making a difference in the community. Not any one particular member, but 100 years from now, we'd like to think that Rotary Club of Sebring will still be here and that the impacts of that club can be seen throughout the community. This is just one way, whether that building is standing 100 years from now or not, Rotary will be here hopefully to continue to make an impact in what we're doing in our community and make it a better place for all citizens. Just wanted to give a couple accolades to a couple people that were instrumental in this project. First, Jeff Roth and Bruce Leibarger actually came up with this project as a memorial way to go back to Rotary's history from the very beginning and make that impact here in Sebring. Maybe a fewer people than Chicago, but all needed all the same. Also, some of your own city council member and employees have been instrumental, not only in this project, but as members of our club. Obviously, Josh Stewart and Scott Neglich have been important in helping this project get off the ground, as well as Carl Kuhl, who has donated his services to much of what you see here tonight. So I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for the consideration. And we love being a partner to what we consider the most wonderful city in Florida. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations. I did not know it was 100 years in Sebring. So that is pretty amazing. And this is a much needed project.
Thank you. And it is. And also our sister club in Avon Park is also celebrating their 100th year this year as well.
Wow. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I do. How are you going to vandal proof it to start with?
So I believe that the material that we're using makes it more difficult for somebody to come in and tag it or do something like that.
And I'm proud of you guys. I've been on this council for 10 years and I've asked, why haven't we done a public bathroom? So very proud of you guys for doing that.
I've got a comment to answer your question, Leonard. Part of our process when we did this is I met out there with Steve and Greg with our preliminary design and said, what do you guys want to see in here? How are we going to keep the maintenance low for the city and still make it look nice? And they had some suggestions that we kind of incorporated to keep the maintenance low and make it as vandal proof as is possible. Where there's a will, there's a way, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
Well, I understand that. That's just, it's almost impossible.
And I need to probably abstain from this vote just because this is my club and my company will likely be involved in some form of this project and construction.
There are doors on this, right?
Yes.
I just saw Carl cut us a little short here and didn't put doors on the plan.
Solid doors.
Okay. I just had a question about the air conditioning. How did you guys go to air conditioning and not just be sustainable like the rest of our restrooms are? Since it's not going to be used 8 hours a day, so.
It's up to
Come on up.
Carl Cool. You're asking about the air conditioning?
Yeah, and the rest of our bathrooms, like behind the police station, down at Vets Beach, at City Pier Beach, they have airflow through them where it's not air conditioned, so it reduces some of the maintenance costs from that standpoint. It reduces electricity because I think as much as it's used or not used, I think that's a pretty good cost to have to run that thing 10 hours a day. 12 hours.
There'll be two it's the way we have it designed. There'll be two air conditioners, one for the men, one for the women. The city staff can set the thermostat setting, And if there was a time to where you didn't want people in there, you can lock the doors and turn the air conditioners off.
I mean, usually at night, you
At
lock
night,
all
I
our
would-
bathrooms, yeah.
And the thermostats
there's no-
can be programmed so that they go off and the air conditioner quits at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock PM. You have that option, as a part of the building.
Okay, I was just kind of curious why we didn't. I mean, you guys did a great job with this, and it's needed. And we talked about this before. Just the air conditioning kind of doesn't scare me, but I'm just thinking the cost. Yeah.
The idea of having a fan system to pull air out, but in the summertime, you're gonna be 90+ degrees inside with the fan system. So it was suggested that it'd be more like a public restroom that is air conditioned, so that it would be more comfortable. We know that it'll be a challenge to maintain it, and your staff is aware of that.
You know, I think air conditioning, especially when you're dragging a bunch of little children, trying to get in there and get everything done, change the diapers and all that, it's almost impossible if it's not air conditioned. Everybody's just miserable.
We had a lot of discussions about just airflow or air conditioning, and there is a big difference. There is a big difference. So this is the design we came up with.
I think one additional comment I would make on that is, obviously, we can amend some of this to fit whatever your desires and needs are on a maintenance type issue. But I think our desire was to make something that's attractive for the community, make sure that it meets the needs, but it also is not, I think if you have something that's more open for airflow, not that it always happens, but I think it's more susceptible to both wind and weather damage as well as vandals. And so I think that we're trying to make something that's fully contained and something that's nice for the community, that people will receive as a nice benefit of being downtown.
Anybody else have any questions?
No questions. Thank you for what you're doing.
Great.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public have any questions? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. The air conditioner, Carl made the comment that it can just be set to go off and on at certain times. I mean, thermostats are fully programmable.
It can be
Yeah.
remotely
Okay.
programmed with city staff
All right,
handling the check.
okay. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve project.
Second.
Hold the board.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Mendel.
Yes.
Stewart.
Abstain.
Bishop.
Yes. All right,
Good job.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll give them a minute to depart. All right. Moving on, item 10D, we have resolution 2024-25, addressing the non-ad valorem assessment for residential solid waste services. You'll find that the rate is going from $225 per unit a year to $230 a unit per year. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 2024-25.
Second.
Hold the board.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Mendel.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes. Items 10E and F have been removed for tonight.
Why
All right.
is that? Why were
They had a meeting, and there was earlier today that there was not a quorum.
Oh.
So they weren't able to. We had to have that first.
Oh.
So it's just being pushed to a later date.
Okay.
All right. Item 10G. That's why we're all here. Come on up, Craig. Craig Fuller is going to give us an update on the West Lake Jackson stormwater improvement.
Good evening, mayors, council, city staff. So I brought it up just so I can look at it out of the way.
Got it.
From me. So just as an update, we're 90% on the phase one. What I wanted to do is try to guide you through all of the decisions in case you disagree, so we can change them and amend as needed. So first of all, this is kind of what it looks like. There's some cuts. It's kind of down near, we call it number 26. It's not important to you. That's down just north of Don Jose along St. Agnes. There were some noted drainage issues that were determined as part of this. I don't have to go through all of the background, but I know there's some that haven't been involved since the start of this. But a lot of sediment was washing down, especially Don Drive and some other notable areas. But we kind of calculated and predicted that a lot of your large culverts were undersized, and notably there was a blowout on one of them during the project design. So we know there's kind of a rush, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't spend your money wisely. That was already repaired. So what we've done, this is kind of a standard layout. If you look at the next sheet, and what it is it's an inline treatment system that basically it removes all the nutrients that are going into the lake. So your system connects to everything, eventually makes its way downstream to Lake O. That means this is part of what's called a BMAP, Basin Management Action Plan. This project, depending on how it gets implemented, we'll update it with the calculated nutrient removal, and you'll get credit toward your goal removal overall in this. There's this huge number that everyone's shooting toward, and you guys have a fraction of it. So this will actually move you toward that goal. As part of that, that's why we're seeking funding. We don't have an answer back yet, so I can't give you that answer. But next sheet. This is some of our interesting approaches. So what we were doing is regrading, and this is just kind of a typical what a profile looks like on the road. Mill and resurface, and then regrade it so it's kind of a standard side-to-side slope along with longitudinal standard sloping. Some of the large swales, we calculated how large they had to be, and we increased their size notably. This one example is at St. Agnes, but there's another one we'll show you at Don Drive in seconds. But we allowed this to decrease the amount of discharge, but also slow velocity. Because if you make the area bigger and the volume bigger, well, it'll send more through. But there's some interesting things we added here. There's almost like a berm. Can't quite see it in this, and I apologize, I can see it in mine. But if depending on the printout you got, hopefully it's visible there. And what that berm does is on the effluent side, as it goes toward the lake, it'll stop debris from going in the lake on the one side, and so it just kind of skims, and then you just have the fast-moving water, and largely these are coming from large swales and culverts. I'll say like Lake Sebring's an example, Don Drive is an example, and then down by Don Jose, and then St. Agnes. So those are kind of your big ones where this would be applicable. But the other benefit of the berm is to prevent sand from coming back in. So we have it so the water actually has to build up and go over into your lake. So we have it designed at roughly your high water mark on where your lake should be. All right, next slide. So we noted an unusual issue. Geometry horizontal was a little off in a couple places. And that's to say that the lane widths actually vary, and there's an area where it looks like it should follow a radius, but it doesn't. And so it was almost like pieces put together of, call it vectors, right? It's got a distance, a length, distance, a length, distance, and a length. And so that may and is likely leading to where it kind of feels strange in driving it. So we can either, and so kind of the rules for us are either fix all of it or none of it. And so what we found was a way we could do it within the area that existed, but meet all of, I'll call it current rules for a roadway. So it'll be, and what we did was, we found some widths that were highly variable. Some of the narrowest lanes are actually 10.9 up to 13 feet, which is really, really wide. You know, compare that to like I-95 is 14 feet. So, you know, it's like, that's what we kind of believe might have been leading to the speeding, because we heard that. We came up with a way to address that. But what we did was we narrowed up the lanes to 11 feet and made it a standard 11 feet. And we've got some comparable examples, so this is not unheard of. This is actually a pretty standard practice, but the reason we narrowed it up is multifold. So one of the biggest is the roadway structure doesn't exist at 12 feet lanes for the whole route. That would mean you'd have to reconstruct big sections of it next to it. Also, there's early on the project, we looked at this. There's a ton of what's called off-site stormwater that just kind of comes down the hill. Well, to meet what's called spread, which is where you have a certain rain event, how far the water will come into the lane, because the water coming into the lane causes hydroplaning, and because of the classification of the road, we have to meet spread because you have a certain speed limit. Otherwise, you'll hydroplane. And so anyway, to prevent this, we have to intercept it, take it into the storm system, treat it, run it through. Largely, it's pretty good quality water. It's just the runoff from lawns and things like that. But to fit all this in, this 11-foot allowed us to do that. We can kind of go through that. And then the other was, this was kind of a late add, but it delayed the project, but I think it'll really, really, really benefit things here. We noted and worked with the property owners at St. Agnes, and you can see kind of a more regular engineered channel as opposed to what nature kind of cut through there. And so what they're going to do is we've got the defined easement for acquiring this. They're going to allow us to have that. And then you'll also note it has kind of a shading there. What we've done is largely, especially on these outfalls, and I'll go to the next slide. And kind of where it narrows in, and this is another one at Dawn, where it narrows in. What we've done is put some differing types of riprap, and that's to hold the structure so it doesn't wash away during large events. And this is kind of a neat thing we did at Dawn. So the existing culvert is what nature cut a path that goes basically straight down to Dawn and then straight over, paralleling it. The outfall there has a the conveyance system is 15 to 18 inches depending where it is along there. We've increased the size to 36, but also we've cut it, and that's what it kind of goes left on your page. We put in a divider and bermed it up to force it to go into the existing channel that's already there, the existing canal. And then once it goes, next slide, once it goes into that canal, what we've done is put a deep bank and shore type riprap, which it's designed basically for lake systems, almost identical to what you have, but it can actually handle tidals. So it's not going to wash away like some of your existing ones. And the width on it, just comparably is for once it gets past the seawall is roughly 2 to 3 times the width. So it'll really slow it down. That way it's not just ripping apart the lake side as it goes through. When you have a big rain event, it's designed for this big rain event, and it knows it's coming. And then this is just kind of show you on this slide here. It's fairly incomprehensible, but you can see it just a little bit. It goes in. It's only a foot. It goes in on either lane, but it should slow things down. We looked at doing speed humps or speed tables or things like that, and one of the last slides I'll show you. It's just because of the type of road it is, it's not allowed. We'd have to completely, when I say the type, every road has a classification, every major road. And this is one of the main roads for the city, arguably. It's one of the main roads for the area. And it's called like a major collector. And because it's a major collector, unless you say, hey, we don't want this to be a major collector, we're calling this something else, you'd have to like petition to the DOT, get them to reclassify. If they reclassify it, you can kind of do whatever you want, but then it's just a local. And if that's done, it's a tough process, and I'm not 100% certain that's what you want to do. If you want to slow it down that much, you'd actually have to put speed limit changes, take it down to like a 25 instead of a 35, and then that would prevent some of the, I'll say, the spread in the offsite and things like that. But just to give you then a history on it, where we're redoing the first ones are the major ones at Lake Sebring, at St. Agnes, just north of Don Jose at Don Drive. So these are like some of the main ones that come through. And then, oh yeah, Pinewood. And that was a double barrel that kind of goes out to a large alcohol there. First phase, and this is largely due to, there's two things, offsite improvements. We think we can cut some costs here, but on the next one, sorry, that kind of defines what each one of these are. And so at each one of these, it'll narrow up to that 11 foot, which will slow things down because you'll feel kind of a little closer. But when I say 11 foot, that's, I believe, College Drive. That's roughly the width there. That's an 11 foot. There's a lot of 11 foot. There's some 10 feet in the area, so it's not going to feel super narrow. It's not a tiny, little downtown street. It's an 11 foot. It's going to be ready to, and the actual conveying capacity is 99 point something percent of the standard 12 foot lane. So next one. So just this phase one, the initial cost right now, the estimate for construction is about 6.3, but we think we can cut a decent amount out because right now we have, just in case we can't do the, I'll call it offsite swale, we have a, yes, trench drain, yeah. So we have to try to keep all of that water from coming onto the road. We put trench drain just inside the curb. Because there's just, we've seen it every time there's a rain event. It either comes down off the hill or it goes down and it hits that hard pan and comes in. So this was a way to cut it off from kind of coming into the road itself. But we believe we can cut that out and put a much cheaper option in, which is like a tiny swale. Deepest part might be 1 foot deep. Basically to intercept all the offsite and then convey it into our system. And when I say offsite, from all the neighboring properties, it's largely residential. And then next one, just to kind of go through some comparable roadways with a similar width and needles, because that's probably the only notable change. So if you're in Winter Haven, the top left is Lake Summit Drive. That's one of the busiest ramps in the chain up there. They only have 10 feet lanes. I think that's way too narrow for the number of boats, and I mean they have probably more wake boats there than any place I've seen. That's a tough one. But Lakeshore and Lake Wales, which is on Lake Wales, it's the road that surrounds Lake Wales, that has 11 feet lanes. It's also, and you'll note the top one, they actually split it off. They have it defined as a local. So if you go into the DOT's classification, you'll see that one has it's weird. It's a grayed out. You can see they changed it to a local. Lakeshore is a major collector, urban, and it has 11 feet lanes. Lake June, around Lake Placid, same thing. Major collector, rural, that's exactly what you guys are. 11 feet lanes. St. Lucie Boulevard in Stewart, if you've ever been to Sanskrit Park, those are 11 feet lanes. I don't love their geometry. It's a little tighter than what you guys are going to have, but yeah, I mean, some of the biggest, there's 40-foot boats going out on that ramp, so they're definitely getting in there. They're getting out of there. That's the only road that connects to it. And then another, it's not on here, Lake Howard Drive that goes around Lake Howard in Winter Haven, another nature collector, urban, very similar feel. It's, I'd say, very residential, but also there's some businesses. So that's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, so for Bob, you can help me kind of walk through this, but so the city is looking to potentially put in an eco park behind Lowe's.
Okay.
Are you
yes.
aware of this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Being that Don Drive is going to be one of the major flow patterns, would this eco park affect what you're doing at Don Drive?
Definitely not negatively.
I mean, in a positive manner, to where we can. Would you have to change the design at all?
No, it's so this will be the collective outfall for whatever happens in that eco park as well.
Okay.
The issue with Dawn is it largely cuts the elevation of the primary what's it prime? What's the property? Prime. Okay. Yeah, the Fryman property. Yeah, it's a bit above it, so it can't. There are some that it can intercept. Largely, I'd say like the 27 effluent or outfall, but most of it comes down and through other ponds, and then it's discharging, and it's cut its way down kind of call it the access, where it looks like you're primarily driving up there to access that area. And that's kind of where it's cutting through and then going down to Dawn and then finding its way through there. But it's largely that it's also, there's 4 or 5, because we've modeled this and tried to figure out what the flow paths are. And it kind of comes through 3 or 4 and then converges onto one that largely kind of cuts down Dawn Drive, which stinks because it wasn't really designed to do that. That's why there is the existing swale system, because the swale system's already there. It just kind of got overgrown, and it doesn't, the water, for whatever reason, at least a third, if not half of it, goes the wrong way. And so what the intent of this is to build it back up so it largely goes back the direction it's supposed to. And then if there is an overflow, it still has the capability of sending roughly 4 times what it's capable of sending right now.
Okay. Any other questions?
I've got one. So was I to understand that the entire roadway will be 11 feet, or just at those major outfalls?
Great question. The entire roadway eventually, but this is phased. And
So
the
phase
reason it's-
1, those outfalls will be 11 feet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we, just knowing how expensive this is, we tried to split it into chunks that are feasible.
And mine was really the same question, because I know there are some issues with boats being wide. And it seems like, is it necessary to make it real uniform all down to 11? Or could you leave some wider spots for the bigger boats when they come, 2 of them meet? That was just a question that I had heard there was an issue.
So, and we looked into that, and that's, so the widest trailers for, so the most common wake boat there is 8.5 feet. And the reason being, if you go wider than 8.5 feet, you have to have amber lights. You have to be guided as an oversized load. It's so, which is to say, these are 11-foot lanes plus the curb and gutter, meaning it's a little wider than 11. But if we made a couple, we're definitely changing some radiuses to make things easier to drive in and out of. But I don't know if that it's going to make any difference of, if we have 3 feet between them or 5 feet.
In other words, is there a way to, it'll cost less if you don't go and try to refigure it down to all 11 feet.
No.
Is there any reason why you can't leave it in the variable position it's in? Is there?
Yes. So right now this is classifications. Right now, it's what's called a failing road because it doesn't meet the you can't get the water off the road, and the water destroys the base material that's underneath it. And so to fix that, we have a proposed grade line. So if you have a proposed grade line, the other is, as I was mentioning on the radius, that makes it extremely difficult for anyone with a trailer to drive that, because right now there's no radius at some points. It's just it's a weird little bump and then back. And I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but we saw it when we tried to create a radius on the road. We're like, I can't.
What do you mean radius? Is that the center line?
Yeah, so roads are all designed around center line. You can actually, if you go up to, I want to say it's the second, fourth the project approach. It kind of defines, yeah, we're there. Yeah, that one works. Yeah. So this kind of shows you what it looks like. You can define a roadway by a center line, right? And to each side, there's a certain fall for this distance, a curve, and then a fall, and then a fall. And if you have everything standard, you can reconstruct it. And that's exactly the issue we had. We tried to keep everything, but we realized we can't keep everything. And then because of the variability, to try to reuse it, we had to make it slightly narrower. Otherwise, we have to rebuild all the other stuff over here, and it was far more expensive.
Well, I see it looks like it works at these other places. You know, the similar width and use of city and county roadways, they're 11 feet, and there's one that's 10 feet. So it looks like it does work.
Correct. Yeah, and that was another, like I'll say like a QC check. Like, would this work? And that's exactly what we wanted to look at. Sanskrit has similar curves. That one, like I said, I don't love the geometry there. I mean, but you guys already have a fixed geometry. We're not going to change the general, other than fix and have a correct radius when they rebuild it. But that was the beauty of it. There was enough right of way to fix it with 11. But if we go to 12, there isn't.
In spots, yeah.
Exactly. And then the other is, we would still allow all of that stormwater to go onto the road. There's just not enough room in some areas. Otherwise, we'd have to move approximately, I don't know, probably, it'd be quite a few thousand feet of water main. Or we just don't fix it. And then if we don't fix it, it'd be still considered a failing road. Then we'd feel like, well, what did we give you? Every major storm event, we'd have to sign some waiver saying basically, hey, look, as long as you guys accept this, it doesn't meet current engineering standards, and you're going to be like, well, what'd you give us?
And so the parts where the vegetation was an issue with the going
Swale.
into the lake.
Yes.
So that's going to be fixed then.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And then how do you, what was, I saw in some of the stuff when I was looking over it, how do you keep like I don't know what the proper term is, the nutrients, the bad stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you make that go back into the ground instead of into the lake?
Great question. So what we're actually doing in all of these, there's a couple things. The swales help a lot, and that's kind of why we put the where we held it back so it didn't flow directly in there. So it's basically, it'll have to build up to a certain point. It'll cause some settling to occur inside the swale, so that during low periods of rain, you can actually access it, clean it out. It'll largely settle, I'll say, kind of at the end of your box culvert, which means you can get in there, get it out, and so be it. But the other is the inline, and that was, I think, slide 2. Oops. That's kind of the 3. I call it that. That's kind of the meat behind this project, and that's the way we were able to get a lot of the next one. This one here, yes, exactly. That's a baby version of it. You'll have some much larger units. I think what's the biggest 10 by 14. So because it's a large road, there's also off-site, you know, implications here. What it has is these inline treatment units that have a reactive. It's actually created by the University of Central Florida. There's a media within it that reacts with both the nitrates and the phosphates to remove them and gather them, and then every 5 to 10 years you can replace the media.
You don't do a regular clean out?
Yeah, there's a regular clean out. So it has a floating turbidity barrier and a basket for I'll call it the normal leaves and things like that. But it's like if it gets through that, then there's the other barrier. Then if it gets through that, there's also a settling area for sand and things like that at the bottom. But that's where you just pop the lid off, and in one area you can get the leaves and other debris, the other you can get the settled sand and things like that. So yes, that's kind of the meat behind it. They're cleaned typically quarterly. That's why they're so big. But also they have to be so big to allow for the reaction time and removal of some of these nitrates and phosphates.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Mayor? No?
You did, you mentioned, your first statement said something about a smaller culvert on a repair job.
So what
Are you
what
gonna
I
leave
meant
that or
was-
just,
Yeah, so if you scroll up to what is the second one up from here. So there was I believe it was this one. It had blown out. So what had happened is some of these culverts and conveyances that go under the road are undersized, and we were calculating how far undersized, and that's where I think a bit ago we came back and we said, hey, you know, it's very possible that they might fail, and then we had a major rain event, one of them failed. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why we phased it the order we did, not because
well, you're gonna put a larger size, maybe I heard you wrong, that you weren't gonna, since it
much
was
larger.
repaired.
yes, it was a temp repair. Yes.
Right, but you're, okay, the way I understood it, that you were not gonna oversize it, you were just gonna leave that like it was. So-
Oh no, that
Okay.
one will go away. That was very temporary.
Okay.
Apologies. Yeah. I apologize. I'm sure I worded that wrong. What I meant to say was, yes, it will take quite a long time for nature to do its work again and blow that apart, but it eventually will again.
Okay.
And that's why what the meat of this project is basically to vastly improve your arterial networks of water. So it's kind of like if everyone's got somewhere to go, if you have your roads are big enough, they can get them there. And right now your roads are way too small, and it's trying to get there and it's backing up. So you've got these traffic jams of water trying to build up behind there, and that's why at dawn it's kind of washing out over on the other side of the street. This one in particular, it's it blew it out. So there's 3 or 4 of these that we know are like immediate, and we wouldn't have done it or recommended these first, other than just to save your road and save your.
Which one is that right there? Is that St. Agnes?
I believe this one is St. Agnes. Yes. Or wait,
It's,
this one is Dawn. Apologies.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's
Yep.
not.
it's John Payne's house.
Got it. Does anybody from the public have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, come on up. Tell us who you are.
I'm Michael Martin. I live at 4090 Lakeview and things there. And I guess a couple questions that I had specifically, I guess in a couple orders, I'll group them together. At Highlands and also down from St. Agnes, there's constantly a drainage thing, and I didn't hear those areas mentioned. Because Highlands, there's a bus stop there, and the kids can't even stand there because the water flows in almost half a lane across, and it's a tidal wave for anybody that happens to be on the sidewalk, and that's 10 foot away from the road. And the water protrudes in a good 5 or 6 feet every time it rains, and it doesn't go away for months. So
I didn't hear that area addressed. There's also been runoff that was coming down, Jeff, what's your address? 3970. In that area from Lowe's, and when they were building the storage building, it's constantly been flowing down, and a few houses up from there over and things. So there is concerns that these areas were not mentioned as far as being dealt with from the drainage
I
side.
think they are, but I'll
Because-
let the gentleman behind you
Oh,
answer
sorry.
your question.
No,
Where's the-
I'm gonna look up the address first to make sure.
Okay.
Because I know, there's 3970 is,
This Highlands is right up front. It's where the first house starts on the other side. Veterans Park.
Where did it say?
And
4970?
basically right across from that, which is right side. It turns down. There's
so, okay.
St. Agnes is down here.
All right. So the construction at Lowe's, much of that will be, because a lot of that does flow kind of toward that Dawn, that same canal that goes through there that we were mentioning just.
That's like 15 houses, right?
Well, no, it's there's 3970, and then
I live
it's-
almost right next to them.
Yes.
One house up front.
Right. So this large canal is being redone and regraded to be able to handle that flow, because right now that's another one it's stopped up with. You're right. You know, there's tons of trees. The trees really inhibit the flow, but also it gets, because of the way it was originally, and maybe things ended up settling in over time, and it kind of promoted growth. So what we're proposing is a largely like rocked in canal system. That way it doesn't, prevent or cause, backups, and it's, so that will be, and there is one. I have an actual proposed layout. Let me see if it shows up better on this. I think it's. I had a kind of, I cut it so it doesn't look that great. I apologize, but it was on the 6th slide. It was innovations, and it's kind of the L shape. That's St. Agnes, and so you can see how wide that's going to be now. Right now, it's only roughly 10 feet. We're taking it to roughly 30. So it's just it is largely to slow it down. It's because it flows through there so fast, and it's just ripping through. And it takes a bunch of silt into your lake, right? A couple down, or maybe the next one. There. That's what the new Dawn would look like. That's Dawn on the right side. And what we're doing is building up a berm that forces it, and then, like we did now, it then goes over to the canal system. This is, and the next one down shows what the
Lowe's would be
kind of back here.
No, it would be up. Lowe's is further up Lakeview Drive. Lowe's is essentially.
Yeah, it's straight. It's over. Yeah, it's right here.
You gotta turn that map upside down. That's what's confusing.
Lowe's is more behind.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically. Yeah. Lowe's is right there. It's basically due west, and so it's. I know it's. So if you orient this.
Yeah.
This
we're
is Dawn.
seeing the water coming from the construction they've been doing down this way, directly over the lots. Things there, so I don't see how this is going to feel that.
Well, I know it's recreating over in this way.
And if they're going to put a park there also, it's in the wrong, their drainage is in the wrong place.
Well, we're at the one thing we're absolutely certain of is the amount that's coming here.
Yes.
And that's coming here.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there's also a problem area.
There is, so
Yeah.
there is another, and this is what we're this offsite, this should, because this is where the proposed park is, that should help on your offsite that you were mentioning, that where it's coming in to, that's the, private property. That would benefit this.
Correct.
And then this is part of, that'd be phase 3. Hang on, let me look. I'm
Yeah,
just
Craig, I
looking
think they need to understand that there's 4 phases to this.
Correct.
This is the first phase to tackle the major ones.
Right.
Okay.
But the park that you referenced it's not a playground park. It's a water retention area with a walkway around it.
Right now, we're just addressing,
Right.
bringing up the point that the construction that's gone on has basically caused all kind of
Right.
flooding. And they were continually running pumps and stuff.
They
down
were
there.
pumping water out.
Even though they were told that they shouldn't be.
Right.
And the minute anybody wasn't watching them, they turned the pumps
Right.
back on, and it was causing all kind of flooding and running.
So,
into the
and this, so conceptually,
Yeah.
if we expand the size of this, it should alleviate it, because basically this is all backed up. It's so small by comparison to what it could or should be, that nothing can flow over here. So where does it flow? It just goes the easiest possible route, overland flow to the lake. So once it's freed up to go, because this is the canal system. It'll be like 30 feet wide roughly on that one, and it's it says it's over here. Yeah, this was 8 feet by 4 feet. The existing was 2, and it's an equivalent of a
So
36
400%.
equivalent. Yeah.
The only other thing I had was the comment in your examples for the other places where you're making the road skinnier things there. I'm not really a fan of that idea, but because when you're trying to back a trailer out or something and you're right in there taking away any footage and stuff, it's just barely enough right now to be able to back in. Because you can't just figure a truck or things there, and your examples weren't a very good example because they don't, our lots and things there have 2 sides that basically our lots flow across Lakeview and have the second component that's on the lake side and the residential, that when you're coming out, you can't just go right out of your driveway. You've got to go in. If the curves are not in the right place or things there. Plus, there's a continual flow of bikers there on the weekends and weekdays. They start about 5 a.m. in the morning, so I don't know if you're addressing bike lanes or anything like that, and how that would be addressed, because none of the examples you gave seem to have bike lanes or anything like that.
There's a reason, yeah, and you're right. There's a
So-
reason. So, okay, valid points on the bike lanes. There's a reason I didn't select any of them that have bike lanes. None of these do. And the reason the right of way that exists doesn't, it's not possible to put in a bike lane, much less. So right now it'd be a rebuild of quite a bit more, and then you'd have issues with your offsite drainage. Exactly what he's mentioning, that it's going right across the road. That's why we were proposing a swale system up in front, because exactly what he's saying, we modeled and said that's happened. That more than half your road is taken up, and I think our limit's something like 5 feet. That's as much as we can allow. And what we're trying to do is prevent all of your offsite from coming on, and that your 5 feet backup will only be from water that just hit your road and it's trying to find its way out. But it should quickly recover. Now, I'm not saying right now this is phase 1. But once all the other sections get completed, there are examples that do have bike lanes, but I'm not necessarily proposing that, because that would be a big acquisition of property.
So can I interject one question? Even if we wanted to do just wider lanes, we go from like 11 to 12.
Yeah.
You're still going to have to you go past the right of way, right? It's property acquisition and dramatically increased costs.
It's a dramatic increase. We can go to 12. It's going to be a dramatic increase in cost, mostly because all of the drainage that we're proposing to capture the offsite will hit all of the water that's there, because now we've shifted everything 2 feet land side, and it fits, but not really, because then these two can't coexist. We have a minimum separation between Bob's water and Scott's, Stevens' drainage system. So just having that minimum separation, the one's going to hit right on top of the other, and it's not going to. We can't permit it that way. At least, we have to move Bob's water, which isn't challenging. It's just very, very costly.
So you got to move all the water lines, basically, is what you're telling to get
We
to 12-foot
would.
lanes.
Yeah, if we want to go
Okay.
to 12, it's possible.
Okay.
It is.
I just want to make it clear why you're proposing 11 instead of
Sure.
12. It's
What's the current width? I'm sorry.
It's 12. Well, it's variable.
the current width of the road. Is that what you're asking? It ranges from 10.9 to 13.
Yes.
Right. It's
highly
variable.
Yeah, and that's
And is that per side or?
that's on per side. Yeah.
Okay.
So and it's not like where the 10.9 is, the 13 was on the other side. It's not like that. It's more like
It squeezes in and out.
yeah, it's highly, yeah. You
Meander
probably feel
around.
that when you're driving, right? It doesn't feel even, and it's because it's not. It was originally laid out in the 20s, and it's been upgraded and updated. But the problem is that kind of a lot of the original concepts were kept, and what we're trying to do is fix all of it as part of this the least expensive way possible, where we're trying to use all of the existing structure that exists below it, because we know this when the structure was updated, which was 1994, something like that, when we redid all of the storm, and most of it's pretty decent. Replacing everything, that also causes huge detours, which that's really where because there's so much dirt work, it's on a roadway project, they call it like getting out of the ground, right? That's like your major step. Wow, you're out of the ground, you're actually able to start paving, and it seems like the paving goes really fast, because it does, but everything else takes forever, and the earthwork can be extremely painful, and that's why we're like, well, I think because of the costs and the benefits of, hopefully we're going to slow things down, because I think you have the irregular speeder, but the speeders can be pretty high. It's going to be a lot more difficult to speed in 11 feet lanes versus 12, because you're not going to feel like you're on an interstate, right? So if you put 14-foot lanes, you're going to feel like you're on the interstate, because that's with the interstate lanes. But if you put 11, it's going to feel like what the road was kind of intended, which is largely a slow speed. I mean, it's not 45. And so people generally maintain that 40 to 45, because it's not designed for it. It's not capable of it, but people are doing it because they can.
You'll see 70s.
I think you'll see less of them. I'm not going to argue. Yeah. But the St. Agnes, that was one, man, they've been a great partner and property owner, and that's where that was one where they had the wayward. Let's see if I give you a number of this. It was showed it on 5. It was just like kind of an existing channel that kind of cut its way there. It looked like a snake. And what we're proposing now is just basically to straighten it out, because what was happening is just, it's funny. We modeled it and we're like, this looks like it overtops here and here. Well, let's check with the property owner, or check with Steve first. Steven's like, oh yeah, they've been complaining about that ever since I got here. I'm like, okay. So, and he's like, can you talk to them and see if we can do this? And they were willing to. Most people are not willing to part ways with land, but it was, I guess, such a brutal, maintenance. It was just washing away, getting extremely close to their infrastructure, right off limits here up to the north, where you can see the dots. That's the edge of their church. So they certainly don't want that loss.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question. I am older and I ride my bike on the sidewalk. I'm not sure if that's legal or not, but I do. Some people ride their bike on the sidewalk, but those of us that ride on the sidewalk are not going fast like these regular young bike riders. And I had never really thought about the bike riders. And a lot of times there are a fair amount of them, and they have little, I don't know, flags or whatever where people do go around them. But I hadn't thought of that. But with the residents that are here that are directly affected, which I'm not as familiar with the way this water goes. You know, I've gone over there and I've seen the washout on the water side of some properties and damage that way. But do you feel like the residents feel like you could work with this plan in phases?
Can I say something?
Please.
I'm Fred Carino. I'm 4241 Lakeview Drive, and I'm the junior warden for St. Agnes Church. That means I'm in charge of buildings, grounds, and toilets. First time I've seen this, but thank you for showing us that. And we would like to get that done with the improvements of drainage behind St. Agnes Church, because we don't want the church to fall in the creek. As far as being a resident, you may not realize, but Lakeview Drive is a major thoroughfare for lots and lots of bicycles. So I understand to put a lane in the road for bikes is cost prohibitive, and you can't make the road that wide. But they're there every day, and especially on weekends when bike clubs come over from the coast. So I don't mind bicycles on the road. I might give my neighbor Michael a couple of lessons on backing up a trailer. But you got to do what you got to do to get it in the road or off the road. But the road is heavily used, and I do see people running 60 mile an hour down that road. And it is what it is. I've been on that in the same house for 31 years now. And I remember when they redid the road in 97, and I remember a meeting like this, and they were going to narrow the roadway to slow traffic down. So now we're going to narrow the roadway again to slow traffic down. Didn't work the first time, but I hope it does this time. And if there's anything we can do with St. Agnes to help this process, let me know, or let us know. And then also, I didn't know if you needed a retention pond or swale on the lakeside, because we've got property there we can't use.
Okay.
But we'd love to get more involved with this. But in the hurricane seasons, hurricane events we've had, which I've been through all of them since 1994, the dirt road behind upstream from St. Agnes has overtopped with floodwaters. Washed all that roadway down into the creek, and then we've also flooded our church classroom with. So we've done that, I think, 4 times in the last 10 years, and it's a big pain to replace furniture and carpets and draperies and stuff like that. So we've been negatively affected by the drainage issues on that creek. I'm sorry, on that ditch, and then also we're looking. We'd love to get better use of our property on the south side of the creek there, because we really don't have any access to it now. And right at the oxbow here used to be the rectory, but our neighbor lives in that house, and that the oxbow is about to cut into their
Right.
property.
Yeah, both sides. Yeah, this
Yeah.
one and this one, they're right there.
Yeah. So we need to get that corrected. But thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
And if, for phase 1, I would ask, when are we going to start moving dirt?
I don't want to give a date, but all right.
We are definitely hoping though for, a real desired date, and it depends on funding, things like that. But I think a realistic would be early to mid next year.
All right. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks.
Craig, one more question too. Then, so what's the longevity of this? How long do you think, once all phases are completed, you're looking at 30 years, 40 years before we're gonna have to do this again?
So the actual built-in infrastructure should last 50 years plus.
Okay.
But roadways are what they are.
Yeah.
No, those are usually it's like a 15 to 20 year life cycle on just like I'll call it a mill and resurface, but that's a recommended. I think we've got. I don't remember what the pavement structure looks like in this. It may be longer than 20, but what you may be able to do is just skim like a thin surface, like an inch and a half, as opposed to the entirety of it. Because what I recollect is the structure on it was because of the way asphalt is, it just tends to separate over a long period of time. But and I think it's kind of standard for it to be like a 20-year life cycle on when you have to replace it. But I don't think you'd have to replace all the way down. Good. Okay, yeah, it's a 3-inch structure on asphalt. I think 8-inch on 8-inch OPG, base group, and then 12 inches of. So it's a really robust structure underneath it, and that the real key to it is getting the water away from it, and then the structure beneath doesn't fail. The one thing I did neglect to address, I ran out of space. Lake Howard Drive is almost identical to what you guys have in Winter Haven. They have, let's say, especially on the north side, and there was, they've got houses and access to lake on the other side. Houses, access to lake. There's another one in Winter Haven that's Lake Elbert, but that's State Road 542. I don't think you want to. And that really is a fast thoroughfare. I don't think you want that structure there. But that has 12-foot lanes. So, and that's why, that's like the difference. I'll say like, it's, where the one is designed for relatively slow speed, the one is fast, It's a 3-lane structure with 45 to, 50 is a lot of times what people are going because that's the way it feels. And it's easy to drive that fast.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes, we have a concern about the amount of drains that's in that area, the collection points for the water. Because we were told that they were actually going to eliminate some of the drains that were there. And that would be an issue.
There
Water that's on the roadway.
Yeah.
Have to travel more laterally before it can enter a drain.
So opposites actually true. There will be significantly more drains. What there will be less is outfall. There's 28 separate systems that basically most of them just go across the road and dump into the lake, and that's we've frequently gone by that numbering system since we walked it originally concepting the project. That's on the second one. If you go way back there. There you go. And red was like, wow, there's no inlet, nothing, whatever. You gotta redo everything. There's nothing. So the entirety of the road now, what we're doing is grading it both to the side and in a direction toward new inlets. But we're largely doing this instead of piecemeal, which is kind of what happened before. It's like, hey, we got Pinewood, put a big drain system. That one works largely fairly good, other than on the lakeside, needs work to harden it, right? But some of the other ones, there's nothing, and there might be a drain and an outlet on the other side with another drain, like a pair.
On our area right now, there's a drain on Eastview.
Yep.
And there's no other drain until in front of our house.
Right.
And we were told they were going to eliminate the drain in front of our house, so that means the water would have to travel
No, there's going to be significantly more inlet. Significantly more. Unfortunately, that's the largest chunk of this project is the lack of drains. But it's the pipes that go out. What we're trying to do is condense them into ones where there's property that Steve and Steve can maintain. Because right now, some of them just go off and then they've fallen in, and there's nowhere for the water to go, so it just kind of pops out in someone's lawn. And it, there's a couple of them that just they are within an easement, but they're so small they're not useful. And then there's some that are just kind of unusually put together and they're hard to maintain. There's one that's a really deep trench. It's really narrow. There's it's just some that just got kind of outlet into where there's a bunch of trees, and then it just keeps growing around it. It's really hard to keep it clean. So the whole idea of the eventual project is one, to have kind of a universal look. One where if there's not a major outlet, what we're going to have is a large. It'll look like it drains, but as an outlet, so it's traversable. Meaning, Mike backs his boat in there. He accidentally runs over it. He's not running over an outfall. He's running over what looks like an inlet, so his tire doesn't get stuck. But water can physically go out of it, and then we have the rock to break up the water so it doesn't wash into the lake. So.
And in that whole area, there's a number of houses there. There's water underground travels from 27 and all ends up to the lake.
Right.
Will that Echo Park area, which is right behind where I am, will that cut down on the amount of underground water that's traversing that area?
So what we're going to do is the water that kind of comes out and comes across, we're going to intercept and grab it before it goes onto the lake or onto the roadway and goes under. And that's the other intent of having the swales to cut it off from coming onto the road, because again, then it just like Mike noted, it just keeps coming, right? It just keeps flowing, and it's because some of it kind of went into the ground, and then it hits that hard pan layer as it comes across, and then it comes right onto or across rather the curb and right into the road, right?
Whenever you dig in our yard,
Yep.
or any of the yards, you see the water constantly flowing.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, the intent there is we're gonna grab the water that's flowing, and we'll put it in like a small swale yard drain type system. It'll go into the main system that takes it right to the lake.
And where would the swales be?
It's just a couple feet right in the front of the curb.
On the properties on Lakeview?
Yes.
How long?
Roughly 3 feet. With there. It's all in the, and that's, I'll say, part of the intent of like narrowing it up so we have room for that, so that we don't leave it, I'll say, like it exists, right? And that would be within it's in the roadways property, so it's not going to be like way up away from it. We're narrowing up the road so we can put this system, and so we don't put the system right on top of your water main and have to move your water mains potentially outside of right
When
away.
you say a swell, do you mean a swell with grass or a swell?
Oh, grass, yes. Yeah.
So that's gonna be in front of all of our properties running along Lakeview?
Not every, the ones that are really steep heading down to Lakeview, yes. But it would be relatively shallow. Without it, right now it's not, as you mentioned, it's not being cut off, and it runs right through it and runs right into the road itself, right? And so the intent of this is to capture the water as it's.
So some of our properties will have a swale between the roadway and the end of our property, right there in the front.
Yes.
And the driveway will have a culvert where the water goes underneath.
I'm not sure if there. It's going to be connected. Yeah, I don't think you'd see it. Meaning, it wouldn't be a culvert. It's going to be below grade.
Oh, there must be visible.
No. So no, it's a fully. It's not. Yeah, I see. Yeah, no. It's not going to be like a really deep swale system. The only intent of the swale is to capture the water.
The underground one.
Exactly, and then it goes further underground into the drain system you're mentioning, and eventually goes into much larger drains that were designed for all the water that it knows is coming.
Some of our properties even had to put French drains.
I saw a couple.
Because
Yes, exactly.
the water was incredible underneath there.
Right.
And right now, those French drains, they kind of
They clog up.
clog up and
Yep.
they kind of get into the system of the roadway.
Mhm.
How will that water be addressed? How will that water be
That's exactly why we're proposing that.
be channeled into the culvert system?
Exactly. Yep. So basically, all we calculated that it was there, and we were trying to figure out where, and then we realized, oh, that's what they were talking about. That's why. But we realized that because everybody's kind of was put in at different times, they don't necessarily all connect together, and they don't. The problem with French drain system is there's a lot of maintenance involved, which means you either have to like acidify it or clean it out in some way. Otherwise, things grow in the little perforations, right? And then once you get enough roots in the perforation, just like sending water down the swale system, it just doesn't go. So what we're doing here is, we're just going straight to I'll call it traditional, really. And there's a detail we just don't have it in this one. I didn't think to add it, but it's a really small. I think it's 12-inch or 15-inch maybe. Yeah, a 2-foot square. Okay, so the collar's 2 feet square. It's a 15-inch little drain. It's not like one of these huge inlets that is like you'd see at the corners. It's a much smaller, and then you just have largely a little bead that goes to it, widens up, so it goes in there, and then moves on. And that's the deepest point. It's literally what they call like a ditch bottom inlet, and it goes in the inlet into the main system. Well, the smaller main system that goes into the big main system that eventually goes out.
And I've got a question. The 28 separate drainage conveyance systems that we're kind of talking about, is that going to be in phase one? Or if it's not, what the folks that need the help, are they going to get theirs first?
So the phase one is first. That's what needs the absolute most work. So
And phase one, would it
yes.
help these folks?
It does St. Agnes, yes. It does Don Drive, yes. It does not go far enough north to, I believe that's either phase 2 or 3. I really can't remember right offhand where Highlands hits. It's kind of right in that edge. And then phase 4 goes all the way down to where it connects at US 27.
So how long would it be before they'd have some relief?
It depends on funding. So funding, we expect phase 1 would be a year, phase 2 would be a year, phase 3 would be a year, phase 4 would be a year for construction. However, they can be faster, and if funding happens, we could build. There's nothing to stop more than one phase from being constructed at once, because they actually run, when I say concurrently, 1, and then you have 2, 3, 4. So the 2 overlaps part of 1, and 3 overlaps part of 1 as well, and 4 overlaps part of 1. But they go back. That's where they saw cut in the end, right? There's the end of 1, starts the next. End of 1, starts the next.
You can't do the stuff further down the road until you set the main infrastructure in phase 1, because then there would be nowhere for the water to go. So
I'm glad you're telling me that.
You have to do
because I'm
phase
not
1
sure
first
how this all goes
to
together.
be able to handle all the extra water that will
Yeah.
be coming into the later phases.
Well, if they live close to Eastview is right there at St. Agnes.
That may be part of phase 1. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eastview is. Yeah. Eastview definitely.
Oh, good.
Does the Dot Drive work, is that all in the wooded area, or does that even extend over?
It's all along Don Drive. We're
Okay,
just
all
trying. That's the.
Yeah,
there's only
because
so much you can send down Don, and that's the problem,
It's kind
right?
of like a swamp.
Yes.
The backs of houses.
Right. So, and it is. It's to regrade. So we're sending it to the existing infrastructure that was there, but also upgrading it, and then upgrading all along Dawn so that when there are big enough events, Dawn can still handle a huge amount of flow. Because right now,
it's, I believe, 18 on the outfall. So a 36-inch pipe can handle 4 times as much as an 18.
All right.
It's a little more than that, but close.
So that map that you're looking over there, is there any way that you can tell us if we're gonna lose a drain that we have on front? Because we are very concerned, because if you take our drain off, then it's very far away where one meet the other one. And then every time there's a lot of water, it's splashing all over our driveways. And if you take that drain, the problem is gonna be worse.
So Mark, who's with me, is the engineer of record on the project. So he works on this every day. So I'm trying to pull out like a remote set of drawings, but yeah, I'm 90% sure you're getting more drains, and they're much bigger. If it is right there by Eastview.
They're actually adding drainage. They're just decreasing the outflow.
And that's where it is.
So they're tying a system together. They're going to put more drains to get the water off Lakeview, and it's going to go into fewer outflows on the other side. But they're going to be more. They're bigger outflows that are controlled. So you're actually having more drains. So it should
Yes.
it should help your property. It should help all those properties around there. So
It's just that we were told,
Right.
for the boundaries, that's where the boundaries. That will be one drain, and then all the way almost to Dawn will be the other one. And then
No.
ours will be taken
No.
away.
that'll be enough. Those will be
Those are the
outflows.
outputs.
Yeah.
That's where it goes
That's
into
it,
the
yeah.
lake.
That's
So-
the outflows.
Right.
The
So-
outflows
so
are going to
this
be
is-
reduced. The inflows are going to be increased. So
Right. So your outfall is quite a bit undersized, and running it where it is kind of, it makes sense because it's going to eat up so much of your property. So I believe this is one where, and I asked him, where's that one moving? But they are combining some of the other ones that were kind of failed, and where the water comes off the roadway, they're routing it through, but they're expanding it, and it'll be along a couple lot lines. The other advantage of this is like you mentioned, that we're regrading the road so that it gathers more into that outfall and sends it where it's supposed to go, as opposed to right now where a lot of it goes there. That's not necessarily the low point, which is kind of problematic for you. Enough, I'll say it probably works great for you, but maybe not a neighbor, a few lots down where the actual low point is. Or I think it's actually at their lot line, right? Or it's
Yeah, I think there was one that was on the same.
right.
Well, right at,
If you want to look at it after, or if maybe we come out, after we're done.
right
with
across
this.
from Eastview is a ditch.
Right.
Yeah, and if it was cleaned, it would help a lot. That thing's been a mess for years.
Yep, and that is part of phase 1 because that was one of the.
Whose responsibility is it to clean those ditches?
Well, right. So this is where no.
That's what I was
so
wondering.
this is where it's a
Public
little
Works.
problematic.
Steve Kramer.
So I won't say Steve because the problem is who owns it,
Right.
and the problem is like some of these are not in city-owned property, and that's what we're trying to fix. Is one either put it within that I think that's why this one was moved a bit, because expanding it within somebody's property is I'll say not necessarily the right thing to do. Maybe if we can borrow an edge where it's like between maybe city property and then maybe their property makes a little more sense. But plus, I think where this one is, the ones we're looking at a different type of outfall, so it wouldn't necessarily be a ditch. The issue right now you've got ditches aren't real pretty, and so we're trying to minimize the number of so-called ditches that you have to maintain, and they are hard to maintain. A ditch fills full of dirt. That's what's going to happen. So if we put it into a structure where the velocities will push it out, but the heavy stuff's going to settle. You can take the grate off, or even get a vacuum through the grate, get your dirt and debris that's settled down there, and remove it. Plus, it's already run through 3 different types of treatment to go before it goes to the outlet structure. So that's hopefully going to make Steven's job feasible. Because right now it's like, how do you maintain that? I'm in Mike's yard or or your yard, and I'm trying to maintain a ditch. And you're like, what are you guys doing here? I'm just trying to fix my ditch, but right now it's not conveying enough, and hopefully that'll solve it.
All right.
Sorry.
We've beat this horse to death.
Yes.
Well, it's a complicated issue and it really impacts a lot of people. So I'm glad to be getting an education on it.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
No, you're good. That was very informative. Thanks.
I have one last question. This is the first time that we come to these meetings and first time that we hear another people. Where can we get information via marriage?
There's no information to read. We've put in an offer on the property. We've submitted a contract, right?
We have, the seller has not yet accepted. There's a sort of a complicated process for the seller to consider. They say they'll do it sometime later this month. So we hope to have an update on that next month.
But, you know, I believe from what I understand, it's going to be a very good thing because it's going to keep that area from being an industrial area and make it into a nice little park with a footpath and different things. And I guess water retention, is that not?
The theory
I'm
will
hearing
be
that.
very similar to what is in Spring Lake. Spring Lake has something very similar to what we're trying to achieve.
How are you going to deal with the home that start going there at night?
That is so far down the road. We don't.
It's
and I don't
actually-
know where they would go. It's just a sidewalk around
Right.
a body of water.
Yeah, it's actually not a park. It's a
Yeah,
water
there's no
retention
playground.
area with a berm around it with a
No,
sidewalk.
no. A sidewalk around a lake.
If we make it an eco park, the state will help us pay for it.
And it'll have birdies and, you know, nice wildlife and stuff.
So the purpose of it is just for water retention.
Yes.
We'll have a little bit of facility.
Well, there'll be a berm around it, kind of like Lake Okeechobee with the road around it kind of thing. So there'll be a sidewalk where you can ride your bike or whatever. It's actually not a park. But they call it eco park because of maintaining the water and stuff.
There's no road, give them accessible some way?
Yeah, you can come in through between Lowe's and,
We're trying to work through all that.
yeah. But I think they're gonna try to make it accessible from the lakeside to
I
like
think
a
so.
sidewalk or something.
Access
walking
is one of the
bars.
issues that's still
Okay.
to be
Yeah.
resolved.
Okay.
But it's going to be a good thing for the community.
All right.
I think that the neighbors are going to be happy if you put a trail going from the lake to that park. Because it's going to have to go through one of ours.
Well, I think we're working on all that, but the alternative, as I understand it, would be an industrial park back there. So this would be much more amiable.
To do a pathway from the lake to there.
But
Well,
you
I
can-
think they're trying to work on it.
All right,
I don't
we're-
know.
we're
I don't think
getting
we've
way
gotten
off
that
topic
far.
here.
But you can go up Eastview to West Beach and go toward the bomb shelter, and there's another roadway. That's all public. Yes. Yeah.
All right. Back to the meeting, please.
I got a question on that. Is that retention area going to have an outfall somewhere that fills up the high?
All of that's going to be, is yet to be designed.
All right. We have no business from the audience. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Administrator.
Good evening. For the project report, Craig just gave a update on the West Lake Jackson project. And now we're talking about the Eco Park. We're still waiting on the contract, as Mr. Swain mentioned, so there's no update there. We're hoping to have something executed in September this month. The potential FDOT road swap of a portion of State Road 17 there's still no update there. Relocation of Public Works Utilities. I believe a contract has been
We submitted a contract.
submitted for that purchase. Bob, has anything, we haven't heard back?
We have not. We hope to hear back by the end of the month.
Okay. The mobile home park moratorium, there's special counsel has been acquired to assist with that. The Lakeview Water Sports Agreement.
Do you know any more than you did? I'll wait for the next one.
Has been sent to Lakeview Water Sports for review, and to my knowledge, we haven't received anything back from them.
That's correct.
And the vegetation on Lake Jackson, FWC is meeting with the city on September 5th to discuss.
And what's FWC, Florida
Florida Wildlife Commission.
Fish and Wildlife?
All right, thank you. Next up, we need to schedule a shade meeting.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
For discussion of the fire union contract. For the meeting, I heard that Leonard was not available from 9:05 to 9:10.
Are you available later in that week, Leonard?
Yes.
11th, 12th?
Yes.
But Terry's not
But Terry's
available
Yeah,
from
I'm going on
9:07
vacation
to
that week.
9:14.
All right.
And the
16th?
I can do that. Oh,
I'm
yeah,
good.
I can do that.
Depending,
What?
So we're trying to get it on the council agenda for the 17th.
Okay. so that-
Potentially, I could schedule a meeting with the union on the morning of the 17th, and not be able to provide the actual agreement to council.
Well, I mean, we really don't have any other dates.
Right.
Because you're going the 9th through the
No, I'm leaving the 5th through.
5th through the
He
what?
leaves
The 10th?
5th through the 10th.
And Terry's out the 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Yeah, I'm out the 8th through the 14th,
So
or the 7th through the
that gives us the 16th.
16th is Monday. I can do that. Are you here Monday?
Yes.
Does everybody prefer mornings or afternoons?
Mornings? I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I prefer
Can we do-
morning, but I don't care.
Can we knock it out first thing in the morning?
That would be great.
9 a.m.
Do
On-
all this
on
shady
Monday?
out.
Monday the 16th.
Monday the 16th at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Mayor, can you get out of bed by then?
I can, but I don't have to because I can't
You won't
come.
be there.
Oh, that's right. Well, you can
There you
sleep
go.
in. You can sleep in that day.
So the
I'm
16th,
gonna have my
9
own
a.m.
meeting.
Correct.
I'm gonna have my own meeting.
Okay.
And that is a shade meeting on
Yes.
the fire.
Fire contract. Bargaining contract.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Haley.
I have two things. One, I just want to remind everybody about the meeting tomorrow night at 5:15. It'll be the first of two public hearings to adopt the budget. So that's tomorrow night at 5:15. Don't be late. Those meetings last 30 seconds, so be here. 14A is the approval of the bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
Pull the board.
Carla,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.